This is the SEO Mindset podcast with your hosts, Sarah McDowell and Tazmin Suleman. This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the fabulous Tazmin Suleman, with new episodes going out every Thursday. This week, we are talking about burnout, which was inspired by a question that we received at our recent live podcast. This is such a good conversation as me and Tazmin really dive deep into what burnout is and the wide range of symptoms. For example, it's not just about our physical health. Tazmin also has a whole list of strategies to better manage burnout. So, try to avoid being in that situation, and leaves listeners at the end with 3 things they can easily implement right now to get a better handle of things. Now, before we get into the episode, just a reminder of the ways that you can support me and Tazmin. So first things first, you can give us a one-off donation. So we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. And if you fancy giving us a one-off donation, a tip, then you can do that by following the link in the show notes. And a reminder that we are on Twitter, or X, or whatever you're calling it nowadays. So if you want to reach out to us, get involved in the conversation, that's how you do it. And also, if you could give us a 5-star review or rating on your podcast app of choice. I mean, I'm talking to a load of SEOs now, so we all know how important those algorithms are. And I'm not going to get into the specifics because I don't really understand the specifics. Well, of course I do. But yes, the more sort of reviews and ratings and love that we get on the podcast apps, the better our podcast does and the more chances people have of finding us. So that would be wonderful. Okay, without further ado, let's get on with this week's episode. Hello, Tazmin.
Hello, Sarah. How are you?
I'm really good, actually. The sun is shining in the UK today, isn't it?
It is. It isn't at my end of the woods, but it was earlier, and I'm hoping it will do in a few, in the next hour, because I'm going to go for a walk.
Oh, nice. Do you try and do a daily walk? Is that a thing?
I try to. Yeah, it doesn't always happen, but more days than not.
Nice. And we just had a bank holiday weekend as well. And again, I was in Essex, down south, and it was sunny, very, very sunny on the Sunday when we had a barbecue. But then all of a sudden the heavens opened on the Sunday. No, not on the Sunday, on the Monday. This time of year, UK weather just can't make up its mind. It's like, yes, have some sun. Actually, no, have some rain. And even, I think a couple of weeks ago, we were having hail. So I find it really tricky to sort of navigate during this time of year.
We were in Portsmouth, and again, like you said, on on the Saturday it was glorious, we were out and about. But on the Sunday, when my husband and his buddies were going over to the Isle of Wight to do a bike ride, it was not so good. So I did feel for them.
So you didn't fancy joining them on their bike ride?
No, not 100 kilometers bike ride. No, thank you.
That's
Actually,
impressive.
even 1 kilometer, because I can't ride a bicycle. I can drive a car, but I cannot ride a bicycle.
Oh, you've never been on a bike?
I've tried, I've fallen, I've been pathetic, but every summer I say, this is a summer I'm going to learn. So this is summer I'm going to learn, Sarah.
Oh, and can I just say, I'm going to quote some words at you there. You've got to be kinder to yourself. You're not pathetic. That wasn't very nice words for yourself there, was it?
So true, so true. I'm getting better at learning how to ride the bike every single year.
And remember, mindset. You don't know how to ride a bike yet, but summer, you're going to be a pro.
Part of me, I wonder, do I really want to? Because lots of people around saying, oh, you should learn how to ride a bike. Well, my husband, not everyone. And I don't know if I really want to figure it out.
Figure it out. Now, I'm excited about this week's topic. So, yeah, tell us where this, because you've planned this episode on burnout, and we're going to get into that. But where did this idea come from?
So, as you know, we've had episodes on the podcast about burnout before. It's something we talk a lot about. But when we were doing the live podcast, one of the questions was, what are the symptoms? How do you know that you've got burnout? And I thought it's probably quite useful to talk a little bit more in detail about the topic, because there's it's a huge topic. I've called it a deeper dive, because even though we're going to talk a little bit more in depth, there is still more to talk about. And we may do that in a future episode and may give, write something up about it. But I wanted to talk about, what is burnout? What are the symptoms? What are the types of burnout? Because we bunch it all up as one. And there are different types. What are the causes and the underlying issues, and what can you do to prevent it? So hopefully we can cover all of that. And if we feel that there's room for more depth, we can obviously provide that later.
Yes, and burnout it's such an important topic to discuss, but yeah, there's just so many different avenues, and it feels quite a big topic. So I'm accepting the challenge. Are you accepting the challenge to try and cover as much as we can in this week's episode?
Let's go for it.
Lovely. Over to you.
Right, so I'm going to start with what is burnout, and I looked at various definitions, and we're going to stick with this one, which is the World Health Organization, who says burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as a result from chronic workplace stress that has not been managed successfully. Now, what's interesting is that it's recognizing that it's a health condition, but they're only talking about workplace. But if we just look at the main bits, it's talking about chronic stress that's not managed successfully. But that can happen in many different areas of our life, which we're going to talk a bit about in a little while. But I wanted to talk about the symptoms. So again, talking about who recognizes symptoms, that they're saying symptoms are feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job or feeling of negativism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficiency or effectiveness. What are your thoughts on the definition and the symptoms that I've just talked about?
So it's interesting that the definition that WHO have had, that WHO have put together, they have sort of they've used the term workplace, don't they? But when you're going through the symptoms, you can definitely have that outside of the workplace as well. So you can have it 100% inside the workplace, but there's going to be situations outside in your personal life that you have these feelings as well. And to be fair, as you were going through the symptoms, I definitely can relate. I reckon at different parts of my career or different parts of my life, I've definitely had those symptoms or suffered with those symptoms. So I think that it's very relatable. And unfortunately, and it's sad to say, isn't it, that we've all probably had those symptoms at one stage or another.
I feel that, World Health Organization, credible organization, but I feel that they've been a little bit vague and restrictive to workplace. So when I looked at, okay, what does that mean? Feeling of energy depletion, increased mental distance. What are the actual symptoms that you could put a pin to? So there's physical fatigue, so like exhaustion, headaches, change in sleep, change in appetite, weakened immune system. If you're falling sick a lot, ask yourself, what's this coming from? Another one, emotional. So this is where you feel detached from work, detached from relationships, irritable, mood swings. You're feeling overwhelmed. You don't feel satisfied. There's a decreased sense of accomplishment in things. Cognitive. So this is when you're finding it difficult to concentrate, to focus, to make decisions. Your memory isn't what it used to be. You're overthinking, you're worrying, negative self-talk, and your creativity diminishes. All of these are things that we hear so often in the workplace, feeling overwhelmed, feeling this, feeling that. Then there's behavioral symptoms. So when you are withdrawing from social activities or relationships, when you're procrastinating. So remember when we had that procrastination episode, I said that there's another reason to procrastinate, and that's burnout. So when you have decreased productivity, absenteeism in the workplace, and when you are not practicing self-care. And the fifth one is interpersonal. So this is when in relationships there's a tension, or you are isolating yourself from your friends and colleagues. Now, when we list those, I'm sure our listeners are probably going to recognize at least one of those symptoms in their day-to-day life.
Can I just confirm, and that is, that goes into detail a lot more, doesn't it? In sort of, because I agree, as soon as you said that the symptoms by WHO are very generalized and it's hard to sort of get your head around, but those that you've just gone through is much more clearer. I'm not 100% sure about this term, so there are probably other people as well. But when you say I can't even say the word absenteeism, does that mean what does that mean? Like physically not being there or mentally not being there?
Yeah, mentally. So you'll turn up for work, but you're not really at work.
So you're turning up.
Emotions. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So it could work. I mean, I'm not an HR expert. It could be that you're actually taking days off sick. But I know that there is also a type of absenteeism where you turn up, but you're not engaged, you're not problem solving, you're ticking the boxes, you're not enthusiastic. And we've got an episode, actually, maybe I'll link it into the show notes, where Shoma Ghosh talks about quiet quitting and loud quitting. And I think she mentions absenteeism in that. And the other thing, the WHO talk about workplace burnout, but there are so many other types. So yes, workplace is one of them where those stresses are leading to burnout. But then there's also caregiver burnout, where you're providing care to family members and loved ones, parental burnout, which is the result of the demands of parenting. And that's also including the challenges of balancing work and family. There is student burnout, so academic pressures, social expectations, workload, fear of failure, social media plays into that. And the fifth one, which actually surprised me, but then it didn't surprise me, entrepreneurial and freelance burnout. So this is where you have the financial pressures, the uncertainty, but you're having to wear so many different hats at one time. And then there's a complexity that you can have a combination. So supposing you are a freelancer, so you've got the freelance burnout potential that is working for a difficult client. So you've got the workplace, you have children, and you're looking after a sick relative. And you're also trying to learn lots of new things all the time, because in SEO, in entrepreneurial life, you have to keep learning. Imagine the pressure that you're under and the combination of potential burnout symptoms. So, for me, even planning this episode has just brought to light how much more complex it is. Burnout is this term that we just bundle everything into, but there are layers and layers and layers. So, what has anything taken you by surprise from what I've just said?
I mean, so I definitely agree what you say about that. It's not that it's trendy, but it is a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? Burnout, and lots of people are aware of it and they know about it, but I don't think until you've sort of gone more into detail, talked about more sort of the symptoms in depth and the different types as well, that it's much bigger than we probably think about as well. And I think that's the first step, because we all, and this is me, I'm aware that burnout is a thing, and I need to have strategies, or I have to have a process or something in place so I don't get there. But it's hard, isn't it, until you get underneath it and understand what leads to burnout, you can't stop the burnout from happening.
No. And I, if somebody asked me, oh, do you think you suffer from burnout? I would say no, because I feel calm, I feel happy, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But when I look at this, absolutely my creativity. So I haven't written a poem in ages, and poetry is the thing that you and I started talking about way back when. And if my friends are going out, I don't automatically say yes, because I'd rather read that book, because I'm enjoying my work, I'm enjoying this journey I'm on. But it's highlighting to me that actually, sometimes take a step back, Tasman. And one of the things this week I'm going to trial, and I might write a post about it, is have a shutdown routine. So at the end of each day, have a routine which will include, these are the 3 things I'm going to do tomorrow. Physically walk out. I'm going to try a few other techniques. I'll talk about that another day. But that's something I want to do. And now that it's, weather is warmer, part of that shutdown routine is then follow that up with a walk. So I'm physically doing something that separates.
As you were saying, that creativity. So you have, like you said, you haven't written a poem in so long, and you didn't think that you had burnout because you weren't showing the normal, well, not the normal, but the go-to signs. You know what I mean? And I think that's the same case, whatever topic that we're talking about, there are these predefined beliefs of like what burnout is, what such and such is, but actually it's quite a broad spectrum. And looking again at the list, and something that I'm struggling with, and it screams burnout, is I've at this moment in time, so I've just started freelancing, and it's a wonderful journey, and I'm like 2-3 weeks in, but the cognitive side, so making decisions I'm finding difficult, or overthinking is a lot what I'm doing right now. And another one that came out to me as well was the interpersonal, so there being like tension or finding it hard to fit in more social or more me time, because that isn't a priority to me at the moment, because I've got work to do, I've got clients to find. But again, that's a sign of burnout, isn't it? Because you're not putting time aside for the stuff that is as important as making money. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. All of those really, really relevant. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about what are the underlying causes of burnout and what are the simple things that you can do after the break, Sarah.
Lovely. I look forward to it. Hey, Sarah here from the SEO Mindset. Just a quick message to say, if you would like to support the podcast, if you love what me and Tazmin are doing, then please do head on over to the seomindset.co.uk/donate. I'll make sure there's a link in this episode show notes. And that will take you to our Buy Me a Coffee page. So here you can buy us as many coffees as you like to support us. So each coffee is a donation. And also you can leave us a message. So that will make it easy for us to give you a shout out. Also, if you would like to reach out to us, maybe you want to say hello, ask us a question, request a shout out, maybe you want to come on as a guest, we have Twitter. Yes. So again, if you head on over to the seomindset.co.uk/Twitter. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes. That's how you can reach out to us, both me and Tazmin. So yes, thank you very much. Right, folks, we are back for part 2. So Tazmin, remind us again what we covered in part 1 and what we're going to do in part 2.
So we covered in part 1, what is the definition of burnout? What are the symptoms? And we went into quite a lot of complexity about the various types of symptoms. And we also talked about the different types of burnout, and that you could have a combination of burnout. So you could have workplace and parental burnout together.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we're going to talk about is what are the main causes and what are the underlying issues. So broadly speaking, you're either doing too much, you're not recharging, or you're not doing things aligned to your values. Those are the 3 main reasons you're going to be burning out. And they sound simple, and you think, oh, I'll just do less and I'll do, recharge more and I'll work towards my values. Oh, that's simple, tick, 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 job done. But it's not as easy as that, is it? So why are we doing too much? One of the reasons is we feel that we can. We think we can do it all, and you can't. And actually that can be quite liberating, because then you can make the choices that work for you. So if anyone hasn't read 4,000 Weeks, I'll put a link in the show notes, read that, because they talk about you can't do it all. So pick the things that mean something to you. Another reason is people pleasing. So this is all inner work stuff. Although the outer work is, oh, I'll do less and self-care more, there is an inner layer that you have to work out. Why are you saying yes to other people so much? Is it because your self-esteem relies on validation from other people? Maybe, maybe not. Not recharging. So we can all say, oh, go and do some self-care. And we have this preconceived idea of what is self-care. But actually, things like working towards your goals is also self-care. Not self-sabotaging yourself is also self-care. So one of the reasons why recharging and self-care doesn't always do its job is because we are feeling guilty. If you're going to go out on a day out with your friends or a holiday with your buddies and feel guilty all the time, you're negating the reason that you're doing that thing in the first place. And, this can be quite gender-based. I was listening to a TED talk where this woman was saying that her husband had said, I do all the things that you do, but I don't do them with guilt. And yet that guilt that you're feeling is negating the fact that you are, going and watching our children play football. And the third thing is you're not aligning yourself with your values. what are your values? The underlying issue there is you may not know what your values are. So going on from what you were saying earlier, that you're in your freelance journey, you sometimes want to go out with your friends, but you are thinking, actually, I need to be making money, need to find clients. So then the balance there is, actually, if I go out with my friends, I am going to feel more creative or feel happier, elevate my energy, and it's going to feed into how I then talk to potential clients.
Can
Another, yeah, go on, sorry.
Can I just add to that as well? So how you were saying, aligning it to my values of feeling guilty whenever I have like social time or whatever that is. So yes, it helps with the creativity side, but also one of my values was one of the reasons why I started freelance and wanting to work on my own was that I wanted a better work-life balance, and I wanted to be able to pick and choose, and I wanted to be able to have the options that if there was, because usually your normal work day is 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 4:30 or whatever it is. Like usually your social time is restrictive to in the evening or weekends, whereas part of this freelance journey was being able to, do you know what, I want to do this thing in the daytime with my friends. That means I'll find time for it elsewhere. So that's another example of it fitting with my values as well.
Another thing, I was talking about this shutdown routine. So I've always been a grafter, family of grafters, work. But then I was realizing that actually say I carried on past 6, how effective was I actually being? Probably not that effective. But then you keep grinding and grinding and grinding, and that's not working. So I've learned how to be more efficient, batching my days. So there'll be a day that I write, or a day that today we're going to be recording 2 podcasts, or I'll be recording 2 podcasts. And then the other thing is that, my health is valuable because we've got grandchildren. I want to be able to play with them and run around after them and, watch them grow up. So that extra hour of work, how important is it when I look at my values compared to shutting down and going for a walk and looking after my health, because my values are also aligned to my family. So again, it just shows you there is another layer of complexity on burnout, because it's not just about doing too much. It is about what are you doing and when are you doing them. And another thing I want to add in, especially if you're starting a freelance journey or if you're starting your career, knowing what your roles are. So the freelancer will need to be creative, need to look after the finances, look after this, look after that, and look after family and relationships. Your values, depending on what hats you put on, are different. So know what role you're playing at that time and let your values steer you. Does that make sense? Am I making sense, Sarah?
You always make sense, Tazmin. You don't have to worry about that. You're very good at explaining your points. And yeah, like I'm just nodding along like a nodding dog. But it's all valid points. And I mean, I'm definitely reevaluating or thinking how I can manage avoiding burnout or whatever we're calling it. But it's definitely giving me things to think about.
So, this, like I said, this episode has given me a lot to think about. I'm going to go into, because we still have quite a bit to cover, and I want to give everyone a flavour of it at the very least. What can you do to prevent burnout? So we've talked about you don't need to do it all and actually accept that you can't do it all. That's really going to help you navigate your to-do list. Permission. You are allowed to live your life differently. We end up living our lives the way our parents lived and, our friends live. You can choose to make the decisions yourself. And, that this acceptance and perspective and permission, that sometimes is very hard to give yourself. And that's why it's really great to be part of communities like Women in Tech. It's really good to work with a mentor or a coach that will almost facilitate that shift in your mindset. Another thing is disregard social media. It makes people look like they've got their stuff together. They haven't. We're all muddling our way through. It's just this facade. Another thing is raise awareness of your workload, be it at work or at home. Because if people don't know what you are doing, they're not going to be able to help you. And that goes to my next point. Ask for help. You are not supposed to do it all on your own. Especially if you have young children and then they are growing up, let them help you.
I would just like to add in about this as soon as, because I end up talking about this a lot, but I remember when I first got into SEO, like my first job in my SEO career, I thought that I had to know it all. Do you know what I mean? And you don't give your permission. I didn't give myself permission to think, do you know what? I might not know it all. I can ask for help, because you think, well, I've been hired to do this role, or take it out of the working concept or the career concept. Being a parent for the first time, you might think, I've got to know it all. It's my role. Or whatever you're doing that's new for the first time. Maybe you're running a marathon for the first time and you're thinking, well, this is my challenge. I need to know what I need to do. I need to put it on my shoulders. But as soon as you allow yourself to ask questions and find communities as well, there's loads of wonderful communities out there for first-time parents, first-time runners, first-time SEOs or SEO communities. So whatever you're doing, ask for help. And also when you're asking for help, it also links back to your discourse regarding social media as well, because you do get your sort of trolls on social media as well. So where you're asking for help, be a bit cautious where you're going, if that makes sense. And if you do get any feedback, anything, wherever you're asking for this help, don't always pay attention to it. I know it's hard. It's easier said than done, but that's another little thing.
That's true. But even in the workplace, and we'll quote our favorite Yvonne here, who is the BA that I coached once. Directors would say to her, Yvonne, can you do this for us? And she'd say, oh, Mark, I'd love to do that. What would you like me not to do? So she's not saying no. Make your manager aware. This is the workload that I have, and these are the number of hours that I have. So what is it that you would like me not to do? Or what can we delegate somewhere else? Because if you're not raising that awareness, nobody's going to know. Same in the work, in the home. Yesterday on the drive back from Portsmouth, I was saying to my husband, now he doesn't usually see me doing this, but I said, oh, what shall we eat this week? And he said, I don't know. So I said, right, well, let's plan. I'm going to do my menu planning here. I don't think he's ever thought about menu planning, which then created my shopping list, which then I did online while we were in the car so I could just pick it up. So it's not just the actual thing, it's the thinking about the thing, which is also workload. So, raise awareness of what it is. My next point would be build self-care into your life without the guilt. Remind yourself that you're going to be better at who you are if you're resting and recharging. And then this is a note to any leaders out there. So this could be a leader in a workplace, this could be a leader in a community, in a home, who cares about the well-being of their team. Practice what you preach. Lead by example. Leave on time. Talk about the social things that you're doing at the weekend. So, those are what you can, try and do to prevent burnout.
Well, can I just say, Tazmin, I'm very impressed because we are rapidly running out of time, but you did it. We've fitted it all in, and I definitely feel a lot more knowledgeable around burnout. I know the different types. I know that you can have a combination. I know the symptoms and how wide and the range that they can be. I feel that I've got loads of actionable strategies and tips that I can implement to help myself prevent burnout. But I suppose my main takeaway from this episode is just maybe just being a bit kinder to yourself. So everything that you've spoke about, all the strategies, everything that we've covered, it's only going to work if you give yourself the same grace that you give other people. And again, easier said than done. But again, it's that change of mindset, isn't it? And if you can, and there are times where you are going to suffer with burnout. Yeah, it's a bit idealistic to think, you'll never have to deal with burnout ever again, because life isn't like that. Work life isn't like that. Personal life isn't like that. But being aware, following these strategies, putting different things in place, you can stop as much burnout happening. Or, I don't know, maybe you can stop burnout altogether.
Well, if we go back to the definition of WHO, they said that where you've got chronic stress that is not successfully managed. So I think life without stress is not going to happen, but it's how to manage it. So are you managing it successfully? And one thing you said was it's easier said than done. I want to leave our listeners with 3 teeny tiny steps to make it a little bit easier. Number 1, the doing too much burnout. Look at your to-do list and either delete or delegate one thing, just one thing. Number 2, not recharging enough. Do one thing that is going to help you rest or recharge, just even 5 minutes today, and enjoy it. Don't do it with feeling guilty. And step number 3, when you're going through your to-do list and you're actually doing the stuff, ask yourself, is this aligned with what I want and who I want to be? So literally those things could take you maybe 15 minutes today.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 teeny tiny takeaways.
And they're really easy to implement. And the one thing that I definitely need to get better at is delegation. You don't have to take everything on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not just if you're employed, but from a freelance setting as well. There's always options. You can always delegate. And I'm gonna take those 3 things, and I'm definitely gonna try and implement and see what happens. So thank you so much, Tazmin. That has been a fabulous podcast episode, and I'm sure our listeners will agree as well. So reminder that if you do enjoy the podcast and you enjoy what me and Tazmin are doing, reminder that you can support us. So we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can give us a one-off donation. So if you fancy doing that, you can follow the links in the show notes. And reminder that we are on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So if you want to reach out to us, talk to us, maybe put yourself forward for being a guest, we love talking to our listeners in our community. So that's where you can find us. And a reminder that episodes go out every Thursday, and we're halfway through season 9, and we've still got loads of episodes planned, so many topics, exciting topics. So you've got some interviews coming up, haven't you, Tazmin?
I have, and actually talking about values, I'm talking to a wonderful guest, and she's going to talk about value-based business. So I think, I'm hoping that a lot of the tips will lend themselves to freelancing as well. Pretty sure they will. So that'd be really good. Looking forward to that.
And we've also got our new feature, haven't we? And I think we can tease this now. So in each season, we're going to invite our good friend, Jack Chambers Ward, on the podcast. So this is inspired by the live podcast that we do twice a year. We always have a cracking conversation with Jack from Search with Candour podcast. So watch this space, because in the next few weeks as well, he'll be joining us for a special kind of episode, I suppose.
No, I'm really looking forward to that, because for those people who don't get to come to the live, it'll give them a flavour of what we're trying to do, and also raise awareness of those unforgotten, unspoken about topics, which actually, when we do speak about them, really hit home for people who are part of that live podcast.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, Tazmin, that is us. That is time. We need to wrap up. So goodbye, everyone. Take care of yourselves. And until next time.